I show you State's Exhibit.
Mayday! This is the Morning Star. I've been stabbed 3 miles northwest of, oh, God!
Well, let's consider all the possibilities.
I didn't kill my husband. I love my husband. You have to leave me.
Libby Parsons has the kind of life most people spend their whole lives chasing. A stunning home on the Pacific Northwest waterfront, a 4-year-old son named Maddie who fills every room with light just by walking into it, a devoted husband named Nick whose latest business deal has left them wealthier than ever. To mark the occasion, Nick surprises her with a brand new sailboat and a romantic weekend at sea, just the two of them. Maddie will stay behind with Angie, Libby's closest friend, Maddie's preschool teacher, a woman Libby has trusted since she was a girl. That night, the boat drifts beneath a black sky. Libby falls asleep pressed against her husband, utterly at peace. She has no idea this is the last peaceful moment she will ever know. Someone raises a glass and drinks to that. She wakes up alone. The sheets are soaked. Her hands are soaked. Everything is soaked. And it isn't water, it's blood. Dizzy and disoriented, Libby staggers up onto the deck calling Nick's name. Silence answers her. Just a trail of crimson smeared across the planks. She follows it and finds a bloody knife lying there. Without thinking, she picks it up. That's when the spotlights find her. A Coast Guard cutter has been bearing down on the yacht for the past half hour. Nick, they say, radioed a mayday before going overboard, told them he'd been stabbed. And here stands his wife, drenched in his blood, gripping the murder weapon. A voice through a megaphone cuts through the dark, ordering her to drop the knife and step back from it immediately. Libby is too stunned to move, let alone speak. What follows is a nightmare in slow motion. No body is ever recovered, not a trace. Investigators say he was a strong man, a survivor. Someone tells her to put her head down, but the blood type matches Nick's exactly, and prosecutors decide the case practically writes itself. An official informs her that a wrongful death determination has been made, and she is being formally charged with his murder. Libby's lawyer apologizes, quietly, and she asks them not to say another word in front of her child. A wife, a $2 million life insurance policy, a husband missing at sea. Libby asks whether someone can keep looking after Maddie, then turns to her lawyer and asks point blank, "Do you think I did this?" The lawyer says what they think doesn't matter. Libby says it matters to her. The lawyer admits no. Of course, they don't think she killed him. None of it saves her. They paint Libby as a cold-blooded killer who murdered her own husband to collect the payout. The jury barely takes an afternoon. Guilty. She stands before the court and says it again.
I didn't kill my husband. I love my husband. You have to leave me.
Before she's shipped off to a women's prison hours away, Libby does the only thing a desperate mother can do. She signs custody of Maddie over to Angie, the one person on Earth she still trusts, and insists that the $2 million in insurance money be placed in a trust for her son. Then she's taken away in chains, and her old life ends. For a while, Angie keeps her word. She brings Maddie to the visiting room. Libby holds her boy through the glass and tells him to be brave. But then the visits stop. The letters stop. When Libby finally manages to reach Angie's number, a robotic voice tells her the line has been disconnected. Libby spirals. She paces her cell. She screams. She breaks down until a fellow inmate, an older woman with sharp, watchful eyes, leans in and tells her to stop crying and start thinking. People don't simply vanish. Angie had to leave a forwarding address somewhere. That somewhere turns out to be the preschool where Angie worked. Libby uses the prison phone, poses as Angie, claims she never received her final paycheck, and asks the secretary to please read back the forwarding address one more time. The secretary cheerfully obliges. San Francisco, a new phone number. Libby writes it down with shaking hands and dials immediately. Angie picks up. The moment she hears Libby's voice, she goes pale and starts stammering excuses, promising a visit was right around the corner. Libby asks to speak to her son, and then she hears it. Maddie's small, happy voice carrying in from somewhere nearby. Daddy. Time stops. Libby hears Angie hiss at the boy to be quiet, hears footsteps, and then a man's voice, deep and familiar and sharp with panic, snatches the phone away. The line goes dead. Nick is alive. The realization hits Libby like a physical blow. Her husband is alive. He faked his own death. He framed her. He took her son. He took her best friend. While she rots in a cell, Nick is living somewhere warm, with Maddie calling another woman's lover daddy, and $2 million of insurance money funding his brand new life. Libby fights back from inside. She calls her lawyer, the sheriff, the insurance company. She tells them Nick is alive. Nobody believes her. They think prison has finally broken her. The San Francisco number, naturally, is no longer in service. And that's when fate sends her one last lifeline. The same older inmate, it turns out, was once a successful attorney before she killed her own abusive husband. She listens to Libby's story, and then she smiles in a way that is almost cruel. There is a clause in the United States Constitution, she explains, double jeopardy. A person cannot be tried twice for the same crime. Libby has already been convicted of murdering Nick Parsons. So legally, technically, the day Libby walks free, she can walk straight up to her husband, put a bullet between his eyes, and the government can never lay another charge on her for it. And here, she says, is the best Christmas present she'll ever receive, the best advice anyone is ever going to give her. Has she heard of double jeopardy? Fifth Amendment to the Constitution. No person may be tried for the same crime twice. That means when she leaves this place, she finds him, and she can pull the trigger, and there is absolutely nothing anyone can do about it. Now keep stirring. Something cold and patient settles into Libby's chest. From that moment on, she becomes a different woman. She runs laps in the yard until her lungs burn. She does pull-ups on the cell bars. She lifts whatever she can find. While other inmates rot, Libby sharpens herself into a weapon. 6 long years pass this way. Her body becomes lean and dangerous. Her mind locks onto a single objective. Find Nick. Find Maddie. Make him pay. Maddie's 8th birthday arrives and she marks it in silence. When the parole board finally hears her case, Libby gives them exactly what they want. She admits she killed her husband. She weeps. She talks about remorse and rehabilitation and second chances. It is the performance of her life, and it works. She's released to a halfway house where she's expected to spend the next 3 years under strict supervision. Waiting for her there is Travis Lehman, a broken man doing a convincing impression of a hard one, a former law professor whose career and family both collapsed years ago. He now drinks whiskey from a flask he keeps in his coat pocket and runs the halfway house with the dead-eyed cynicism of someone who has watched too many parolees disappoint him. He lays out the rules for Libby in a bored monotone. Curfew, a job, no criminals, no drugs, no alcohol. 1 violation and she goes back inside. Travis has absolutely no idea who he's just been handed. Libby has zero intention of waiting 3 years to find her son. That very first night, she slips out and goes straight to Angie's old preschool. The director recognizes her and refuses to give up any information, gently suggesting that Maddie has a new life now, and disrupting it would only hurt him. Libby thanks her and walks away. Then she comes back after dark and breaks in. She finds Angie's file, tears out a single page with an address on it, and bolts as the alarm screams. Police catch her sprinting across the beach. By morning, she's in a holding cell. Travis arrives the next day, disgusted and exhausted, not even trying to hide his contempt as he handcuffs her to the door of his prized vintage car and drives them onto a ferry headed back toward prison. He takes the page with Angie's address and pockets it. Then he heads up to the top deck for coffee, which he quietly spikes from his flask. This is the mistake of his life. Down in the car, Libby notices he left the keys in the ignition. With one hand cuffed to the door handle, she twists herself around, starts the engine, and begins ramming the car backward and forward against a metal post on the ferry deck, trying to smash the handle free. Travis hears the chaos and comes thundering down. Libby slams the car into the vehicle ahead of her, sending it tumbling off the ferry into the ocean, then locks her door. Travis smashes the window and dives in just as she floors it straight off the side of the ferry. The car plunges into dark water. Alarms blare overhead. Life preservers splash down around them. Underwater, Travis fumbles frantically and finally manages to unlock her cuff. But the instant she's free, Libby grabs his pistol from its holster, cracks him across the head with it, and kicks away into the deep. Travis is hauled out by rescuers, bleeding and humiliated. Libby, fueled by 6 years of relentless training, swims all the way to shore. His boss is not pleased. A wounded ego, a stolen sidearm, and an escaped parolee. Travis is reprimanded and put on a leash. But for the first time in years, something is burning under his skin. This isn't about a job anymore. This is personal. He sets out after her without authorization. Libby hitchhikes to her mother's farm. Her mother, who never doubted her for a single moment, pulls her into a tight hug and quietly hands her a small stack of cash she's been setting aside for years, just in case. With that money, Libby buys an old green pickup and disappears down the highway. Her next stop is a BMW dealership, where she tells a salesman she's a woman named Angela Green and asks him to run a credit check using her social security number. He taps at his keyboard and frowns. The records show her last name is actually Ryder now, with an address listed in Evergreen, Colorado. Libby smiles, thanks him warmly, and walks out with the address written in her palm. Travis, 3 steps behind, leans on an old contact, a former parolee now working in a government office, and pressures her into running the same social security number. Within hours, he has the identical address Libby already has. Libby races to Evergreen, heart hammering, gun in her bag and revenge in her veins. But strangers answer the door. An elderly neighbor pottering in the yard next door wanders over and fills in the history. Angie and her family used to live there under different names, yes. But several years back, there was a terrible gas explosion in the kitchen. Angie was killed instantly. Her husband and the little boy moved away. Nobody knows where. Libby stands frozen in that yard. Is there anything Nick won't burn down to protect himself? She does not believe for a second that explosion was an accident. She asks the neighbor if she remembers what kind of vehicle the family drove. The woman describes an old truck. What color? Libby files the answer away and heads to the public library, digging through microfiche until she finds the news report, officially ruled accidental. But in a photograph of Angie standing in her kitchen, Libby spots something hanging on the wall behind her. A Kandinsky painting. Nick collected those obsessively. They were his prized possessions, his vanity, his weakness. Wherever in the world he is still buying Kandinskys. Libby walks into an upscale art gallery dressed like money and tells the dealer she's looking to expand her Kandinsky collection. He's delighted and pulls up his database. One was recently sold by a private collector, a gentleman named Jonathan Devo, a well-regarded hotelier down in New Orleans. Libby's hand tightens on the counter. She's found him. But Travis has found her, too. He spots her green pickup outside the gallery, identified by the same elderly Colorado neighbor. He walks in just as the dealer steps away. Libby has seconds. She grabs the printout with Devo's address and slips out the back. Travis chases her into the parking lot. She drives her truck straight through his car, which he'd parked to block her exit, and roars off. He gives chase on foot through the streets, but she vanishes. She ditches the truck and books a flight to New Orleans. Travis, piecing it all together, races to the airport behind her. New Orleans is suffocating in heat and noise. It's Mardi Gras. The streets are packed, and somewhere in the heart of the chaos lives a man named Jonathan Devo, who was once Nick Parsons. Libby walks into the lobby of his lavish hotel and asks for him at the front desk. He's not in, the clerk tells her, but he'll be here tonight for a charity bachelor auction. When Libby quietly asks about a little boy named Maddie, the receptionist's smile falters and she goes silent. Libby checks into a different hotel nearby, where she overhears an older woman give her room number at the spa. Libby uses that name and room number to charge a stunning designer gown and accessories to the woman's account at the boutique. By evening, Libby Parsons looks like she owns the city. Travis lands in New Orleans, marches into the local police station, and convinces them to issue a be-on-the-lookout alert. An escaped parolee, armed with a stolen service weapon, believed to be targeting a prominent local citizen. One of the officers glances at her photo and remarks that she's quite attractive for a convicted murderer. The cops aren't thrilled about chasing a parole violator in the middle of Mardi Gras, but they put the bulletin out anyway. That night, the auction is in full swing. Tuxedos, champagne, laughter. And then, from somewhere in the crowd, a woman raises the bid on Jonathan Devo. Nick freezes on stage. He knows that voice. He scans the crowd, but a sea of feathered masks and silk gowns hides her completely. Another woman bids against her. Libby raises her paddle again and again until she wins him outright. She walks up to the stage and quietly calls him by his real name. She greets him and asks whether he's going to give her a kiss. Nick goes white. Smiling for the cameras, he pulls her aside. She tells the circle of glamorous women surrounding him that she's his wife and watches them scatter in confusion. Alone with her, he begs her to listen. He claims he was on the verge of bankruptcy, that faking his death was supposed to protect her and Maddie, that he never imagined she'd actually be convicted. Angie's death, he insists, was a genuine accident. Libby looks at him with the cold patience of a woman who has rehearsed this moment for 6 years. She swears on something, and then cuts through everything he's saying with a single demand. Just give her Maddie back. She tells him she will leave him completely in peace if he returns her son. Nick swears the boy is at boarding school. They agree to meet the following day. Later that evening, Travis comes knocking at Nick's hotel office. Nick delivers a brilliant performance, claiming he has never seen this woman before, that some deranged stranger has been stalking him and calling herself his wife. Travis warns him she is armed, but as he turns to leave, his eyes land on the Kandinskys hanging on the wall. Something clicks. He gets on the phone to his Washington office and asks them to fax over driver's license photographs for every Nicholas Parsons registered in the state. Meanwhile, Libby slips into a quiet bar to eat. The owner recognizes her from the police bulletin. Instead of turning her in, he warns her that officers are posted outside and hands her a red umbrella to disappear into the rain. She slips into the crowd just as Travis, riding in a patrol car, catches a flash of red. He leaps out and gives chase, and grabs entirely the wrong woman. By the time he realizes his mistake, Libby is gone. She calls Nick from a payphone. "Bring Maddie to the cemetery tomorrow," she says. "A public place where a funeral will be taking place, so there will be witnesses. Don't try anything." The next afternoon, Libby moves among the marble tombs as mourners grieve in the distance. Nick appears and gestures across the lawn toward a small boy. "There's Maddie," he says, just a little shy. Libby's heart nearly cracks open. She moves toward the child, softly calling his name. The boy looks up, panics, and runs. She gives chase, and that's when Nick steps from behind a mausoleum and clubs her across the back of the head. The world goes black. Nick drags her limp body into the stone crypt, lifts the lid of an ancient coffin, and dumps her inside next to a centuries-old leathery corpse. He slams the lid, locks the mausoleum door, and walks out into the sunshine. Outside, he hands the small boy some folded bills. The kid pockets them and runs off. He was never Maddie. He was a stranger, paid to play a part. Travis confronts Nick back at his office. He asks whether Nick has ever arrested someone he genuinely believed was innocent. Nick, now utterly composed, seems convinced his problem is solved. His wife is buried alive with a mummy somewhere across town. Inside the coffin, Libby wakes in absolute darkness. Her hand brushes something dry and brittle. A faint light filtering through a stained glass window overhead falls across hollow eye sockets. She screams. Nobody hears her. The funeral is over. The graveyard is empty. Then it hits her. Nick never searched her. Travis's pistol is still tucked in her waistband. She wrestles it free in the cramped dark and aims at the hinges of the coffin lid. 2 deafening shots in that confined space, and the lid buckles. She heaves it open with everything she has left and stumbles out into the dim mausoleum. The door is locked. She hurls a heavy vase of dead flowers through the stained glass window and climbs out into daylight, scraped and shaking. Walking back through the city, she rounds a corner and comes face to face with Travis Lehman. For the first time, Libby doesn't run. There's nothing left to run with. She breaks down completely, and to her astonishment, Travis pulls her into his arms and holds her. "It's over," he says quietly. He believes her now. The faxes from Washington came through. There are 6 Nicholas Parsons registered in the state, and the third one is a dead match for the man calling himself Jonathan Devo. The Kandinsky sealed it. Nick is alive, and he is everything Libby always said he was. Travis pays Nick one final visit. He spreads the photographs across Nick's desk. 6 Nicholas Parsons on file in Washington, and number 3 is sitting right across from him. Nick tries to stay cool, pointing out that changing your name isn't a crime. "Ah," says Travis, "but insurance fraud is an entirely different conversation." He makes a show of reaching for the phone, then pauses and floats an alternative, $1 million, and he forgets everything. Nick doesn't have that on hand, but he offers the $100,000 he keeps in his safe and a promise of the rest by tomorrow. As he reaches in to open it, he laughs and drops what he thinks is his trump card. Libby is already buried. The door swings open behind him. Libby steps in with the gun raised. Nick goes rigid. He reminds her almost mockingly that Louisiana has the death penalty. Libby tilts her head and walks him through exactly what double jeopardy means. She has already been convicted of his murder. She cannot be charged again for the same crime. Travis confirms every single word. Nick's face finally cracks. Travis follows up, making absolutely clear that she is right. Where is her son? All she wants, she says, is Maddie. Nick, voice beginning to tremble, tells her the boy is at St. Albans School in Georgia. Libby raises the pistol and puts a bullet straight through one of his beloved Kandinskys. The painting splits. Travis tells Nick they are walking out of this room right now, and if he so much as flinches, they will pin Libby's disappearance on him and bury him in federal prison for the rest of his life. They turn to leave. Nick's voice follows them. He warns Travis that there is nobody left to arrest for her murder now, implying he knows exactly where things stand. Nick pulls a pistol from inside the safe. A shot tears through the room, and Travis crashes to the floor. Nick swings the barrel toward Libby, ready to finish what he started 6 years ago. Libby fires first. One clean shot. Nick collapses across his desk, his fortune and his lies dying with him. When the police arrive, an officer surveys the bloody office and informs Libby that as Nick's legal wife, she has just inherited herself a hotel. Libby doesn't even glance at it. She wants nothing he ever touched. Travis, bleeding but alive, stops her at the door. She is still officially a fugitive, he tells her. She will have to return to Seattle, but he will testify for her. And as it turns out, he quietly recorded the entire conversation in Nick's office on his cell phone, including an admission that the man in that room was Nick Parsons. The case against her will fall apart. She will walk free, fully cleared, fully pardoned. Travis loses his job for everything he did off the books. He doesn't seem to mind. The two of them drive together across the country to St. Albans School in Georgia. They wait outside in the green afternoon light as a class of small boys files into the yard. Libby spots him instantly. 6 years older, taller, but unmistakably hers. Maddie stares at her, uncertain at first. The way you stare at someone from a dream you only half remember. His father and Angie had told him his mother was dead. He takes one slow step forward, then another. Then he is running, and Libby is on her knees in the grass, and her son crashes into her arms after 6 lost years. She holds him tight enough to make up for every single day she missed. And somewhere behind her, Travis Lehman smiles for the first time in a very long time. The law that once buried her turned out to be the very thing that set her free.